Welcome back. You're watching Politically Correct with me, Maya Hayakawa. If you're joining us just now today, I have John ELIAKIM with me here today, who is an aspiring member of parliament for Embu County in 2022. And we've been here having a discussion on youth and leadership. And now I want to shift over the conversation to women empowerment, because turns out John is very, very passionate about women empowerment. I find this very peculiar, if I might say, because a lot of women empowerment issues come out from women themselves, and we're seeing more and more women come into leadership. And so I want to get an idea of what his thoughts are in terms of women and leadership and women empowerment as well. Welcome back to the show, John. Now, you have said time and time again that you are very passionate about women empowerment, and I'm curious to know, especially in such a patriarchal, society that we're living in today in Kenya here, and in terms of our culture, where does this passion really come from, and why are you so passionate about women empowerment?
Exactly, Maya. We need to realize that 50% of the population in this country is composed of women. So living out this portion of the society is ideally ironical. It's not proper. Even the US president, when he came in, he was very quick to mention that indeed we cannot live out this particular portion of the society. Women make a very important, they play very important roles in society. Mm-hmm. I come from a family where I have sisters, I have a mother, I have aunties, I have cousins who are females, who are women, and I've seen their struggles. As you mentioned, indeed, we live in a patriarchal society, or rather over the years that has been the case. We are witnessing a shift. Women have really been suffering a lot in terms of some of the cultural practices that have been practiced over the years. Talk of FGM, talk of early marriages. Like for instance, I have a particular member of my extended family who has gone through some of these challenges. It pains me, as a man, that indeed we cannot be treating these very important people in our lives in a casual manner. So we need to take it more seriously in terms of the empowerment levels. They are taking place right now, but much more still needs to be done.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm really curious to know, especially from, like you have mentioned, that we come from a very patriarchal society and culture, and you being male, because oftentimes when you hear of women empowerment, it's always the women who are pushing women forward, and we hardly see men standing up for women empowerment. But like you said, you mentioned President Barack Obama, who addressed that when he came to the country. What is the reaction like from your fellow male counterparts when you're very passionate about women empowerment? What's the reaction?
Interestingly, for your information, Maya, most men actually support women empowerment. Really? They don't have an issue with it, because we have real issues that are affecting women, or rather that have been affecting women. Real issues that need to be addressed. So I can assure you, men actually support women empowerment in a very substantial manner. The only challenge, rather, where the difference really comes in, is at times whereby empowerment takes a number of factors. Like for instance, the religion needs to play a part. The government needs to play a part. Mm-hmm. The family unit needs to play their part. Mm-hmm. So when one portion of the society does not play their part, let's say for instance religion, which is very controversial, obviously there is actually an aspect that is not going to go down well in terms of the empowerment. So most of the concerns, most of my male colleagues actually have issues with is the aspect of maybe the attitude that maybe some of our ladies might have in terms of you feel entitled because maybe you've been able to achieve a particular thing. So that is the only aspect that I tend to have a bit of issues with. Nobody wants to address that, but I'm very confident in actually saying that it's an issue that needs to be looked into, and that's why I'm actually encouraging, especially the religious institution, to actually play their part in a very good way.
All right, I want to shift over the conversation, because you said that, yes, indeed there has been a shift, and we've made some milestones and progression in terms of women empowerment, particularly in governance and leadership, where, we have women in parliament who are, representing parliament. But then, as much as we've made these milestones, would you say that women are still marginalized in terms of leadership, in terms of the roles that they are playing in government, or are they still facing some challenges?
Indeed, Maya, women are facing enormous challenges in comparison to our men. Of course, the reason being because of having lived for over the years in a patriarchal society, they have been marginalized so much, and a lot needs to be done. Now, for instance, when I look into the political landscape, for instance, I remember I mentioned that actually if you want to get into leadership, you need to have a lot of economic power, you need to have a lot of money to get into it. Because of living in a patriarchal society, women were a bit left out even in terms of education, in terms of getting access to economic resources. So this is basically a challenge for them, for instance. And even as we are talking right now, they're still marginalized. People still have a negative perception in terms of women leaders. Kenyans, for instance, are yet to literally start thinking of having a women president. Yeah? It does not go down well in terms of. You remember I mentioned actually we live in a society that is more of conservative. Yeah, so they are feeling a bit left out, and literally say we are a bit marginalized in that particular aspect.
But looking at leadership and governance in women, we've seen other African nations, other African countries that support their women in leadership. There are even African countries that have women as their presidents. And even, 50% of their parliamentarians are actually women. Why is it that in Kenya then we're less receptive towards women taking a role and central role in leadership?
Good question, Mara. Of course, you've mentioned, like for instance, in Rwanda, actually Parliament is made up of more women than men. We have an example of Liberia where we have the president being a lady, Helen Johnson Sirleaf. These are classic examples that indeed women can make it in leadership, and it's not really a matter of who they are or what gender they belong to, but they can actually deliver. So I think in Kenya, as I've mentioned before, we have issues with the attitude of the people. People are yet actually to start comprehending having women as leaders. It's going to take a lot of time for them to actually understand that indeed women can come on board because they form a very important aspect. I think this is a very good point to actually suggest that the difference in terms of how women and men lead literally is that at least women pay more attention to detail, while men tend to be more logical in terms of their thinking. So their leadership, how they lead is literally the same. The difference basically comes into those particular two aspects that I've already mentioned.
And speaking of which, now lately there's been a heated debate, going around the country where people are actually suggesting scrapping of women representatives of Parliament. With the heated debates that are going on right now, why the heated debate, number one? And number two, what are your thoughts on this? And do you think it's likely, how likely do you think it is that it will actually be scrapped off?
Let me start with the final question you asked. We had a deadline that this particular aspect was supposed to, by this I'm actually referring to the gender role, it was supposed to have been realized and enacted by the end of August, the month that I just ended. So we are way beyond that particular deadline, so basically Parliament did not make it. It's a bit sad. Number two, I don't buy the idea of scrapping of the position of women representatives. It's quite unfortunate that there are sections of leaders who are actually trying to do that. I was actually sharing with a colleague of mine, a lady, and she was trying to give me an ordeal whereby a young lady was defiled back in a constituency. Unfortunately, nobody really came to the lady's rescue. So the question that was literally in her mind was, where was my women representative? What is she doing about all this aspect? So for her, she didn't really see, why do I need a women representative in the first place? That's the other thing. Number two, I think it's important for us to realize the reason as well we are having this heated argument about women representatives is not because women don't really, or rather are not really interested in leading. I think in terms of the roles of women reps, they were not set up very clearly, or rather, the general population is not aware of what is the role of women representatives. Number two, the other contention that comes in is who exactly are they supposed to represent? Are they supposed to represent women? Because you remember when you're actually taking your vote, even the men voting women representatives. So I think their roles need to be, outlined in a very clear way to ensure we actually get a better understanding of what is the role of women representatives, what is their position in terms of the county, because we have 47 women representatives in the country. Yeah, so those particular aspects are very important to address.
I like that you brought that out. You brought out what is the role of the women representative, and we've been seeing that a lot of what the women representatives have been doing is representing issues that women are facing and dealing, every day. And the question that I have for you is that, do you think that their roles and responsibilities should be expanded outside of just dealing with, women issues and gender issues, and can actually be applied to societal issues versus just women, issues?
I agree, Maya. I think actually what we should do is we need to get rid of this perception that women representatives are there to cater for the needs of only women. Remember, I've just mentioned that during elections, both men and women voting for their women representatives. That needs to come out very clearly. Number two, I think in terms of their roles again, I don't know how really Parliament is supposed to work this out. But this perception that indeed the only way women reps, or rather the only way we're going to have numbers in Parliament is if we have women representatives, that thing also needs to be, looked at in a different aspect. Let's not just have numbers or just have legislatures whose role is not well stipulated, who create some level of confusion. You leave the general population a bit confused. What are they doing here? What is their role? What's the way forward with them? Because right now I can assure you that the general population, out there at the grassroots level, they are not interested in having women reps anymore. Yeah, I hold maybe a different perspective. So let's come up with better roles and the responsibility, and then let there be some kind of public awareness in terms of what is their role. Number two, now to answer a different question. So I really don't think they should focus on women issues alone. Let basically their scope be widened. Let them offer, something good about women is that they have a very nurturing nature, which is very good. So I think they should literally expand their responsibility in the community.
It is very interesting to me that you said that the reactions that we're having from the community, from the citizens, they are saying, what is the point of having this woman representative? And this is the question that I have for you. The question that I have for you is that in terms of women and leadership in Parliament, are they doing their jobs? Are they effectively delivering their services indeed? What is the main issue here? Is the issue the attitudes? Is the issue the women in the Parliament? Is the issue, the roles are not being properly defined? Then what is the actual issue that people are saying, we don't need to have women representatives?
Interesting. Just about 2 months ago, women representatives have actually been trying to pursue to actually get a fund for women. So people are literally asking, why do they need a fund in the first place? Mm-hmm. You see, if I was maybe a women representatives in this particular Parliament, at least they should have done something more constructive, so that by the time we are getting to 2017, and any demands that they make, Kenyans can actually be more considerate and say, indeed, women reps are actually doing 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. It's actually helping the society. But as the situation stands right now, the dialogue we've been getting from women representatives has been very discouraging. I don't want to get into a bit controversial in terms of the stories we've heard about some of the women reps, some not very appealing to the public. So I think they really need to rethink, what is even their role, what are their priorities. So priority is also key here. Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's interesting that you bring out, because you said that they've had challenges in terms of getting access to resources as women in leadership, and also in terms of budget control and all of that. Obviously, they haven't had as much support from the government. So it really brings out the question of that. Is it that they're unable to deliver, or is it that they just simply don't have the resources and are marginalized in governance itself? Comments?
Yes, there are very many comments. One, you need to realize that the way men and women lead is the same. The only difference is this, that women will pay more attention to leading, while the men tend to be more logical in their thinking. So in terms of leadership, it's out of the question. They can lead in the same way, they meet the same challenges. So literally the idea is, where is the starting point? Yes, you mentioned economic resources. Indeed, women reps, for instance, don't have access to any fund. Yeah, most of the funds that is in their possession is actually controlled by either the county government or the Senate, for that matter. So indeed, even if they really wanted to start a program that deals partially on women, or rather on the community in general, they are having difficulty in doing so. So it's not a matter of can they lead or not. It's a matter of do they have the support structures to help them come out, so that we can be able to hear the voices, we can be able to understand what are some of the things they're doing for the community.
All right, thank you so much for that, John. And once again, we need to take a quick break. When we come back, more with John. And after this break, we'll get into the middle class. What are John's views in terms of the middle class and the roles that they are playing in leadership and governance, and what we should do to ensure that we have good leaders in office. Stay tuned here on Politically Correct, only on TVC.